Hi, this is David Meyer from Mock Cherub, and this is my 85 Mazda RX-7, Brazil 66. Last October, Bernie Herrera, the organizer from 7 Stock, had invited me out to take the car out with the Mazda Factory 4 rotor race cars. That was a huge honor for me, and I was really pleased with how well the car performed. Handled very well, and the engine had plenty of power. We were probably putting down about 70% and still hitting 130 in the straights. So very pleased with that. Unfortunately, my fun was cut short in the second demo run when a bolt got sucked down into the carburetor and it took out my rear rotor. Now this happened because it's a bumpy track and I didn't Loctite the bolt on the carb velocity stack. It worked its way loose and got sucked down in it. So that's okay. It was still an amazing experience and I would do it again in a heartbeat. This gives me an opportunity to do this great video where we're going to pull out the engine, do the rebuild, and basically chronicle the resurrection of Brazil 66. So stick tight. We're going to get started here, and hope you enjoy the video series.
Okay, so begins the disassembly of the engine compartment. I lost an apex seal when I was at 7 Stock doing the demo runs due to a stupid mistake. I didn't Loctite the carb hat or these one of the velocity stacks down. I didn't use Loctite or a locking screw, and it came loose, and then the engine sucked a bolt in. So I lost rotor. So we're going to pull it. Let's take the starter cable off. Okay, let's see. All right, the lock washers, and remove the starter cable. I've already removed this thing that goes to the sensor on the tranny. So I'm going to go ahead and put these washers and lock washers back onto the starter terminal, just so I don't lose them. Okay. All right, so all the wiring is disconnected that I can see. Oh, yeah. Probably have to remove the speedometer cable. So let's see, I need a number 10 for that. So I'll do that next. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take off the speedometer cable next. Don't really need the speedometer cable anyway because it's I'm using a GPS speedometer. So it looks like this isn't on very tight. Let's go ahead and loosen it, see if I can get this thing out. Yeah. And out it comes. We're just going to leave it like that because for now it's just hooked up to be out of the way. I can probably remove this cable altogether because I don't think there's any oil that would leak out. That's sealed. We'll see. I'll probably take this out later. So, speedo out. Okay, now we're going to do the oil, drain the oil. Let's go ahead and let's see, good. All right. You ready to get out of the way here? All right. Okay, we'll let that drain. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and drain the radiator. And it looks like, I've never used this before, but we've got a drain plug right here. It's a wing nut. Looks like it's plastic. I better be careful with that. I'm gonna grab this with a wrench and try turning it. I'm gonna try this one. And a little bit more of a bite. A little more. All right. So, lefty. It's gonna go this way. Okay, that turns. Okay. That looks like it's gonna come out. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be messy. Let's go ahead and let her drain. Ugh, yuck. This is polishing. So, that's gonna make a big mess. Okay. Made a bit of a mess. Actually, not too bad. That looked scarier than it was. Sprayed a little bit. I'm gonna let this thing drain. Okay, now it's time to go ahead and take off the hoses. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and try this one too. Okay. Loosen it, and hopefully nothing comes out. Nope, nothing. There we go. Okay. That's the upper radiator hose. Lower radiator hose. It's right here. These OMP lines are in my way, so I'm going to take them off. Here. I'm going to fish them up here so they don't leak all over the place. Oh. Okay. All right. Now I can get down here and twist. This is still a little tight. There we go. Fix that. There we go. There we go. And I think I'm going to remove it from the bottom of the radiator too, just so it's not in the way when I pull the engine. Don't want the engine catching on anything. There we go. There we go. Lower rad hose. Okay. good. Now I will probably be replacing this with a Koyo rad. So I'm going to leave it in for now. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is remove the clutch fan and the shroud just so I can get this more clearance. So when I pull the engine out, it's not going to hit on anything. So that's next. Okay, let's go ahead and get this fan off. I already loosened a couple of these bolts here. Take them off. Okay. Let's see if I can get in here. Probably easier over here. There we go. These can be tricky because the fan will want to turn on you. These are starting to drip. Okay. This last one here. Okay, good. It can be tricky to get off because the fan wants to turn. It's like trying to take the lugs off of a wheel that's jacked up. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can get that off. There we go. Try not to smash your radiator like I just did. So we're just going to leave that sitting in there carefully. And then I'm just going to take this shroud off. Okay. Try to do this without losing all of my washers. Okay, that's one. Not held on to anything. Yeah, looks like it's just 2 bolts. Oh, actually there's 3. Okay, there's this one here. This is too tight. Okay, good. And there is one more. Right inside of there. I will need a socket to get to that one. Okay. Okay, here we go. It's loose. Let's see if I can't just take both out carefully. And first. And then the shroud. So I'm going to probably take the intake manifold off next. So before I do anything else, I'm going to put all these bolts into this baggie and I'm going to label the baggie. It's a good idea to do this for everything as you're taking your car apart, because if you're like me, you're going to forget where these things go, and that can be a real hassle later on. So sometimes I just leave the bolts where they go, but if it's not practical, and in this case it's not with the fan shroud, I just put them in a baggie and I just tape them to the actual part that they go to. Okay, I'm going to take the intake manifold off. I need to take off gas line. I need to take off the heat shield here for the exhaust. and then I'll work on the intake manifold. I also need to take off the throttle cable. So I think I will work on the heat shield first. There. Now let's take this thing out. This is not a 12. It would appear. Well, maybe it is. I think it's probably 11, but this is coming out, so I'll go ahead and crank it up. All right, there we go. Give me a little room to work. Okay, next, think it would be a good idea to disconnect the throttle cable. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and start working on the throttle cable. Let's see if I can't get this thing off. Feels a little loose here, so maybe I can just turn it. And yeah. And just slide it out. Oh. Let's pull that and loosen it up. And it's a little tight quarters here, but all right, it's loose, and I broke my glove, but that's okay. And I'm just gonna spin that nut back on to the throttle cable. And tuck it away. So the next step, I put a little container down here to catch any gas that's going to drip, and I'm going to remove, you can't see it with this velocity stack, let's go ahead and pull that out. And I'm going to remove this gas line. Okay, it's loose. Work it off and be careful here. And then make sure it's plugged with my finger. Okay, I'm just gonna dump it this way. Oh, okay, there's no fuel. Okay, so we're good. So my next step, I'm gonna leave these lines, I don't know if you can see these, but I've got my O&P lines here. I'm gonna leave them on because I have them crimped on actually. These are custom lines I made. And I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and unbolt the intake manifold. I think these are number 12. Yep. Oh. Okay, yep. That's one. I'm going to loosen this one here. Alright, these are all loose. Let's get this one. Now, being a peripheral port, the intake manifold is super easy to get off. That's really nice. So we're gonna. It's not like trying to get the stock intake manifold off, which has a bunch of hidden screws and it's hard to get to, or hidden bolts. Okay, these are a little tight because I actually pulled off the intake manifold at 7 stock and had a look inside the chambers to see what was going on, because the car started running so terribly all of a sudden, and that's when we determined that the bolt got sucked in. So to put it back together again, we had to get some silicone and just seal it up to put this back on, just so I could get the thing drivable. Yes, it was actually drivable after apex seal went, although I wouldn't want to have driven it all the way home. But it was good enough to get it back into the trailer. Okay. Alright, I believe that's it. Come on now. Almost there. Good. Okay, yep, that's throttle bracket. And we're gonna have to, now it's stuck on, so. Oh boy. Yeah. So I have to get up in there and unstick that, which is not gonna be a lot of fun. Alright. Okay, so this is annoying, but the sealant is on so well that this does not want to come off, and I'm going to have to cut it off using a blade. Unfortunately, I can't really get in there safely and get all the way around this, so I'm going to leave this on. I'll put a couple bolts on just to be sure it doesn't come off when we pull the engine. We're just going to pull it off after we pull the engine. Okay, so next step is to take off the oil cooler lines. I have a makeshift oil cooler wrench. It's just a crescent wrench, and I'm going to carefully, and the trick is doing this very carefully. I think we're going to need to tighten that up a little bit. Let's see how that works. There we go. And we want to be careful that we don't hit the radiator. There we go. Okay, open it. Okay. I think that may have loosened it enough. Nope. Let's try again. Oh. Let's try this again. It doesn't. Let's try opening it up more and see if I just can get the tip of the jaws in there. This isn't the easiest thing to do with the radiator in place. And I should just remove the radiator, but I'm too lazy to do that. Okay, there we go, it's turning. There we go. All right, there we go. Now before I do that, I should probably get well, gonna go ahead and make sure the oil has some place to go that isn't all over my garage floor. Okay. Okay, and oh, there we go. Okay, nothing coming out. That's good. Let's scoot this over to the other. Now that I'm gonna have to get up underneath to do. So let's do that. There we go. Let's be loosey. So we're gonna go this way. There we go. It's all right, isn't it? All right, here we go. A little bit of oil dripping over here, so there we go. I figured that would happen. So we'll let that drip. Yeah, I figured that would happen. Not much I can do except let it drip, and I'll clean it up later.